Have you ever wondered what it would really take to break free from the identities, patterns, and people-pleasing tendencies that have kept you stuck your whole life? Well, in this episode of Becoming Unbound, I'm joined by Johanna Burkhart, a quantum alchemist, channeler, and author whose mission is to help people master their frequency, turn pain into purpose, and align themselves with their most authentic self. So, Johanna's story is raw and powerful, from navigating deep childhood trauma, losing her father, and reaching the edge of burnout, to leaving her marriage, nearly selling everything she owned, and stepping into a life as a nomad. She knows what it means to continually choose herself, even when it's the hardest thing to do. So in our conversation today, friends, Johanna shares what freedom looks like for her today, what she calls the purification process that she channeled and that helps regulate her emotions, reframe old stories, and how choosing yourself first is the key to living unbound. So by the end of this episode, you'll walk away with practical tools to shift out of the negative loops, a new perspective on boundaries, and the courage to finally prioritize your soul's desires. If you've ever felt chained by expectations or weighed down by old identities, this conversation is going to open up something big for you. Let's dive in. All right, Johanna, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here. And I am so excited today to dive into your journey of becoming unbound and all the good, juicy details about freedom for you. So I wanted to dive in right away. Tell us about yourself. How did you start this journey, and maybe where are you at today? And then we can work backwards from there.
Well, today I'm free.
Amazing.
I mean, my circumstances and my life is not where I necessarily want it to be. It's a journey and it's a process, but freedom is what I've always wanted. And it took me a while to figure out what that meant for me. And so today I'm free. I live by the desires of my soul and what I want to do and when I want to do it, and diving into those projects and going to those places. And just, it's a different feeling when you can just wake up and say, what's on my heart today? What's on my soul today to do? And know that I'm able to do that. Like there's no money that can give you that. There's nothing. It's just something that you find inside of yourself and create for yourself. And it was quite a journey to get to that space, but I never want to let it go.
Amazing. Yeah, I like what you said, to be able to just follow your soul's calling. And I think that is such a challenge.
Yes.
Even for myself, some days where I'm like, oh, I have a space of free time in my day.
Yeah.
What do I do? It's so hard for me to not go into doing and oh, let me do something for my business or let me do something. So that is so cool that you can experience that and allow your day to flow where you want it to go.
Yeah.
Where do you want to put your energy and be tapped into that? That's very cool.
And
How did you get?
I rest more than I've ever done in my life as an alpha,
Wow.
As someone who's always considered herself an alpha, go, go, go. I was in corporate forever, So it's not something that came easy, but it's definitely well worth it.
Amazing. So how did you get to this point where you're resting all the time and you're doing it in a wholehearted, guilt-free way? Because I know our listeners would be like, what do you mean? How do you do that?
Yeah. Well, this has multiple parts to it. So like most people, I was bound and shaped by my trauma of my childhood, and that repeated into my friendships, into my marriages. And it wasn't until 2015 that the first breaking of the chains began. I was very enmeshed with my father, and he was my lifeline. My mom had left when I was 3, so he was all of my safety. I anchored everything into him. And he was 56 years old when he got diagnosed with liver failure and was given 4 months to live. And I pretty much just, at that time I had just gotten a huge $50,000 a year promotion in my real estate career. And we were building a house and I was getting married, and it was like the best. I was like, my life is finally like coming together. And then this bomb drops and my whole life flipped upside down. And I entered into a very deep, dark place watching my father die. And then when he finally did die, it's like the foundation underneath me was pulled out because I'd anchored all my safety into him. And so all of my intuitive gifts and all of my repressed trauma came back all at once about 2 months after he died. And it literally just cracked me wide open to the point to where I came to the edge of wanting to self-delete because it was like, this is too much. And in that moment, this little tiny bit of light came through, and I just started crawling towards it and trying to find who I was without him, without that enmeshment. Because when you don't feel safe inside of yourself, you literally can't do anything. Like, you can't move forward in life because you're just constantly going through this hamster wheel. And I felt so chained by that energy. And it took me a couple of years of really deep, deep healing, of facing myself in the mirror and learning to accept who I was, and just trying to figure that out, and just slowly like shutting out all of these false identities shaped by my trauma. And after about 5 years, the next break came. And that was when I left my husband. And in that moment, I chose myself. And that was one of the, I get emotional just saying that. It was one of the first times that I'd ever chose myself, because I was textbook people pleaser, chameleon. Who do you need me to be loved, to be wanted? And I left him, and a year and a half later, the final break came when the next rug got pulled out from underneath me and I became a nomad. And so I had no home. I had sold almost everything I owned. I had just what I could fit in my car, and I had no idea where I was going, what I was going to do, where I was going to live. My kids one was an adult, one was just about, I think he was 16 at the time. And I just said, I'm sorry, mom's got to go. I have got to pour into myself. I can't keep doing this, because when I left my husband, I had stage 3 adrenal fatigue. That's how burnt out I was from trying to do it all, run businesses, take care of him, take care of the kids, with zero support coming back to me. And so I took that year and a half after I left my husband to start to heal my adrenal fatigue. And then I just hit the road. And it's a weird feeling when you have no security whatsoever. You have no certainty whatsoever. You have no idea what's going to happen, where you're going to go. You're solo traveling. And it was the scariest yet most liberating and exciting thing I've ever done in my life, because you're forced to face every single one of your survival fears. You're forced to find the certainty in you and anchor into you. And I don't think I could be who I am today or feel the level of freedom that I do today without that, because uncertainty doesn't scare me. To me, it's an adventure. I get excited. Ooh, I wonder what's going to happen. Do I still feel fear? Do I still feel the anxiety? Of course, because it's a double edge. Excitement and anxiety and fear, they're one and the same. And so I just learned how to constantly reframe the story, redirect my consciousness, tap back into that feeling that I'm free, and that, this is all a dream, and I can create the dream how I choose, no matter what the circumstances are, that it doesn't have to define my state of being. And that was a process that I had channeled in 2019. It's called the Purification Process. And that simple process is 4 frequencies and 4 small statements that you use to check in with your mind, body, soul, that I've used ever since to constantly redirect myself, and not just mentally, but my state of being energetically. And it's changed everything for me.
Wow, it sounds like you lived basically your whole life under this identity that wasn't yours.
Yeah. Multiple identities that weren't mine.
Yeah. So how does that happen? Like And same for me, same for probably our listeners. Like, what on earth and how are we going to do this differently is also my question for our future generations. Like, what do you think brought us into these identities of like, being the people pleaser, the chameleon? Like you said, those are those energies that keep you so stuck,
Yeah.
so far and detached away from your authentic self. And so cool that you were able to continually break those chains and be like, even that must have been so hard to tell your 16-year-old child, like, I have to continue on my path. Like,
Yeah.
my soul is important.
Yeah.
And yet for the majority of our lives, we tell ourselves that it's not.
Yeah. Well, there's
It's
multiple things because for me, and it's probably similar for a lot of people, but when you grow up in a home where you're not seen, you're not validated, you're not loved, you're not, your needs aren't met in the way that the child needs them to be. As a child, you learn when I do certain things or I be a certain way, I get attention, I get seen, I get my needs met. And that might look a little bit different for everybody, but it's the same story overall. And that's what was for me. And I mean, for me, think about, I don't remember the day my mom left, but I was 3, and it does something inside of you when you're 3. You really don't understand why someone was there one day and then your mom's gone the next, right? And then as a teen, like my father emotionally abandoned me when I was severely abused by my stepmother. And I did anything and everything to get his attention or to survive. So for my stepmother, I just literally whatever she needed, what I took care of my siblings. I was 12 years old, I'm raising children. I took care of the siblings, I took care of the house. I was pretty much the woman of the house. I took care of everybody's needs. And when I did that, I got seen, I got validation. And so there planted the seed for the people pleaser, right? And with the chameleon, I learned how to read their emotions, their energy, to be able to predict what they
Mhm.
needed and who they needed me to be, planting the seed of the chameleon. It was also my training ground. I always say, as someone who channels and someone who's very intuitive, like I learned as a child how to read people very quickly, and so that happened. And the thing that I feel, it's 2 parts, parents and school system. If we learn to teach children how to emotionally regulate and we start to be a living example for our children of boundaries, of respect, of those types of things, and really loving them and validating them in the way that they need, the same way we do with love languages. You love your partner in their love language, not yours. We have to start to do that for our children. And if we can just show them that they're loved no matter what, no matter if they clean their room or not, or got the A or an F, you may be disappointed, but it shouldn't, you shouldn't isolate your child. You shouldn't do any of those things. You should still show them that they're loved and important no matter what. And I feel like that is starting to change with the newer generations coming in. But I know most of my clients, like that was the same story that they had and why they were doing that. But because I was a people pleaser, I didn't have boundaries at all. I had none. I mean, that's how I got to stage 3 of adrenal fatigue, taking on everybody's emotions, taking on everybody's problems, trying to fix it all, trying to do it all, trying to be it all. We're just not built to do that. Women are not built to do that. And it makes women have autoimmune diseases and adrenal fatigue, get sick, gain weight because they don't feel safe. All of those things throw our hormones out of balance. And we just have to get back to the space where the woman is the woman and she does what she does best. And it isn't that. It isn't hustling. It isn't doing it all,
Yeah.
And so that, like, for me, that's the biggest thing I think we can do to prevent this from happening again.
Yeah, it's like we do everything for that safety to know that we are going to be loved at the end of the
Yeah.
day. And yeah, we will wear any mask we can to get that. And that, because it's inbuilt to have that loved and feeling of belongingness to
Yeah.
our community, to our primary caregivers, like you will do anything. And if that means, picking up after everybody else, then that's what you will do. And now we have a whole generation of women, adults who have all these needs, and they're like, what's a need? Because
Yeah, I didn't even know.
yeah.
I
And
when
it's
I
been called needy. You're
need
needy, but
Yes.
like, no,
No, no. And that
no.
was the craziest thing when I moved out of my house, because when I was that sick, I literally just walked away. I gave him everything. I didn't fight in the divorce. It was my third marriage. I literally walked away with my desk and my clothes and my cat. And I moved into a little apartment down the street so I could be close to my kids. And I was sitting there in my apartment alone. And for the first time, I had nobody to take care of but myself. And I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know how to do that. And I thought, this is sad, number one. But I was like, I don't even know where to start. Like, I don't have anyone to take care of. And when your worth had stemmed from caring for people and pleasing people, I mean, I repeated that into 3 marriages. You feel so unworthy when you're sitting there going, I have nothing to validate my worth.
Mm.
And that was a hard pill to swallow. And I had to start doing things and asking myself, well, what do I want to do? And to be honest, I didn't know. So I just started trying things, and
Yeah.
taking myself out to dinner by myself. And I had to choose to become my own best friend. And I spent probably 3.5 years almost completely isolated, without friends groups, without family, without anything. And because of that, though, I don't like the word to say I don't need anybody, but because I don't, but I get to choose. I get to be selective of who I bring into my life and into my circle. And that's powerful. And I have very strong boundaries today. And I lost a lot of people when I found boundaries, a lot of people.
Right, because so many of the people that you would have been keeping around benefited from you not having
Yes,
boundaries.
exactly. That's
Yeah.
what I say. If you start using boundaries and you lose people, don't take it as you're unworthy. Those
Mhm.
people, they benefited from you. And now that you're not to their benefit, they don't need you. And so why would you want them?
Yeah.
Even if it's family.
Yeah. And it's so great that you were able to take that time because, yeah, with all those unmet needs, and yeah, you have to figure out your values. I think we've talked about this a lot on the podcast, is like, as a first step, figure out what it is that you want and you value and you put first
Yeah.
according to you,
Yeah.
not according to anybody else's
No.
story, not according to what society has shoved down our throats for your basically whole life,
Uh-huh.
or what your husband wants or your children wants. Like, what do you want? Like, your soul, your mission, your beingness is so important, and you got to do that. Like,
Yeah.
was there any like a support or help that you got, or was this just a solo mission?
It was a solo mission, but I had friends. I have friends all over the United States and acquaintances in the industry. And so I would spend a few months here with somebody or a few months there and visit, but for the most part, I was by myself. And I had people who were cheering me on and, who would check in on me, but I was my support. It was just me. And that
Wow.
I needed. And I remember feeling angry that I didn't have someone who could help take care of me or who could support me. But I think it was all by design, because if you have anchored your safety into someone else or anything outside of yourself, right? Even a 9 to 5 job. People say, "Oh, I own my house. I'm married. I have this great job." None of that is security. It's false security. We all know people can wake up one day and ask for a divorce. You can go into work one day and your company could be shut down or let you go. Like, none of that is security. So it's nice to have, and helps you feel stable. But I had to learn to be secure in myself and trust that no matter what happens next, I will be able to figure it out. I will be able to handle it. I will be able to find someone if I can't do it by myself. And I did. And it was basically trial by fire. But I kind of have that energy. I'm a kind of an extremist. I jump in, and if I don't like it, I'll jump back out, but I don't dip my toe in. It's like, I'm just going to go all in and I'm going to figure it out. And I had to do it that way, but it allowed me to feel secure. So if tomorrow, if everything fell apart again and the rug got pulled out from underneath me, is that going to be sad? Will I grieve? Will there be, fear? Sure. But at the same time, I'm be like, well, I've been here before. I'll figure it out. It's no big deal. It doesn't have to disrupt my peace. It doesn't have to disrupt my joy. I can still be happy. I can still be at peace. I can still enjoy my life, even if things are not going correctly in my eyes.
Yeah. What's coming up for me right now when you tell this is your ability to self-regulate
Yeah.
and not be hijacked by your emotions. So
Yes.
in the process of like becoming unbound and understanding that you've got you and no one else has you, and you don't need these external validators that tell you you're a good person because you're married or that you have
Right.
the stable, secure job. How did you learn to find like emotional regulation? Because I feel like for the listeners, like this is baby step number one. Like, yes,
Yeah.
figure out your values and your needs and stuff like that. And the skill of being able to emotionally regulate when you are angry, when you are
Yeah.
grieving, when you are making sure it doesn't take over your life and the
Yeah.
decisions that you make. How did you learn how to do that? Or were
So
there tools?
yes. So it's part of it is the purification process, which I will share.
Mm.
But the first step is self-awareness. And self-awareness is you being mindful of the thoughts that you're thinking, what you're feeling inside of your body at any given moment, the words that you're speaking, the actions that you're taking. And that requires us to slow down. And a lot of women, and I was one of them, right? I was like, when I was in corporate, I put on my resume, I'm excellent multitasker. I could do 85 things at once, but I was exhausted at the end of the day and I never really completed any one task. And so by slowing down, it was a process of practicing slowing down, I learned to do one thing at a time. And when it was complete, I would move on to the next. That wasn't easy, but I trained myself to do that. But I also just became very aware of my thoughts and how I felt. And then the purification process is what I channeled. And it's 4 frequencies. So it's I see you, I hear you, you are safe, and I love you anyway. And I love you anyway is tattooed on my arm
Oh.
because I legit hated myself. And so when I was able to love myself again, I never wanted to forget, no matter what state of being I'm in, I'm worthy of love. So I see you is I recognize what's happening right now. I recognize I'm having negative thoughts. I recognize what's happening around me. Like I call it out. And as soon as you call out, I'm angry, I'm sad, whatever it is, I'm stuck in a mental loop. My mind is noisy. When you call it out, it takes away 50% of its power right away because you're looking at it. You're acknowledging it instead of trying to avoid it and distract from it. I hear you is what's the story? What's the story that's going on in your head right now? It's not true. You don't have to believe it. That's a choice that you make. But I hear you is listening because what you're actually listening to, your brain is a receiver. You don't store much of anything in your brain. It's just an antenna. So you're receiving from another version of you that is another identity, another mask, and they're trying to communicate with you. It could be an inner child. That's that child's story. See them, hear them, just listen. It's not something that means something about you. You just need to be heard and seen, that part of you. When you recognize the story, you can also start to access the underlying belief, but that's going, a lot deeper. I am safe is 2 parts. One is look around you and recognize when you're in fight or flight, your body's thinking a tiger's about to come eat you, right? Or you're about to get in a car accident. I'm safe is look around, recognize that you are safe, and then that it is safe to feel. So I'll put my hand on my chest or on my leg and rub it and say, it's safe to feel this. If you're angry or sad, it's okay. It makes sense that you feel this. It's safe. Let's feel it. It'll last about 60 to 90 seconds if you fully allow it. And that is the process of transmutation right there. Is as soon as you feel it, you're breaking up that really heavy, dense energy that was never yours to begin with. Your own baggage weighs nothing. If you feel heavy, if you feel overwhelmed, you're carrying programming, beliefs, identities that were projected onto you or that you defined based upon your circumstances. It is not your truth. So if you feel that way, that's a sign that you're carrying things that aren't yours to carry. And so when you feel it, you start to transmute that heaviness and you begin to feel lighter. And I love you anyways, pretty self-explanatory. It's loving yourself through the process. So don't, not shaming yourself, not being hard on yourself because you're angry or sad or because you need to sleep for 2 days, right? It's having that love and compassion and being the kindest voice in your head. You can't expect other people to be respectful and kind to you if you aren't first that, because you teach people how to treat you by how you treat yourself. So if you're always putting yourself last, guess what? Everybody else is too. If you don't have any boundaries, people are not, those no boundary people are going to come find you, And so between just being super aware of my thoughts and my feelings and how my body feels and utilizing that 4 steps, I was able to begin that process. And in the beginning, it took me about a year because I would literally go through each of those frequencies or each of those steps. But now I can do them all. And you don't need a lot of time. You could integrate that into your day as you work, as you're raising children, as you're doing whatever. You can do it in your head. You can excuse yourself and go to the bathroom and sit there and go through that process. But now I can do it all at once in under a minute if I need to. When I'm super dysregulated or when I had moments of super dysregulation, I tried different things until I found what worked for me. So sometimes that's walking, just going for a walk and listening to other meditation music or just the environment around you. Breath work, another amazing tool to really connect you back to your body, and dancing. Like dancing and singing out loud, those 3 things, if I'm really dysregulated, will immediately bring me back into that neutral state. So those are the tips that I would give people to start to put into practice. And even if you just take the 4 steps of the purification process, if you're not super self-aware already, it will help you to become more self-aware. And the more self-aware you are, you can interrupt the pattern the moment it shows up. And then you're not getting sucked into that negative feedback loop and find yourself 2 days later going, oh my God, I've been stuck here for 2 days, or longer
Yeah.
even.
Yeah, I think it's that turnaround time. And that was one of the first things where I was like, oh, wow, interesting. Like, I first started working with a coach, and whoever it is that helps you, whether you channel it or support friend groups, like just understanding that, like, what is your turnaround time?
Yeah.
And then, you can look back in a year from now or 2 years from now and be like, wow, I used to have a 3-day turnaround time where I would just be stuck in these negative loops. It would change how I interacted with people, how I showed up at work, how I showed up in my relationships, the food that I ate, and it would last me 3 days.
Yep.
And then if I love your process of like talking to yourself, finding awareness. A year later, is your turnaround time like a day? Is it
Yeah.
12 hours? Do you just need time to think on it? And like you said, now you can do it in a minute.
Yeah.
Like now it could be an hour to be like, oh, hi, negative thought loop. How are you? Yep, here you are. Okay,
Yep.
you're welcome here. This part of you is welcome. I see you. You're here for a reason. And we're
Yeah.
going to go on with the regular programmed,
Yeah.
scheduled program, because I can't have you here disrupting my relationships, the
No.
food that I'm eating. It's only keeping you stuck and
No.
heavy.
And just like the other day, I was coming in, I had a meeting and I'm walking into my office and I heard, this thought in my head and I knew exactly what version of that it was for me. And I just said out loud as I walked in, I said, nope, that's a past memory. That's not who we are today. And it literally it was gone, but yeah, that's me now, 6 years later. But when I tell you I have used this process every day of my life since I received it, I have. And it's come automatic. And so find whether if you want to try out the purification process or something else, stick to it, commit to it, use it day in, day out. And the reason why I like that, because I was literally on my closet floor crying to God, like, please help me. I don't know what to do with all of this. I don't know how to fix it. I don't know how to deal with it. And I started hearing those words. I see you, I hear you. And I would write them down, and then it took a little bit longer for the context for each of them to come through. And I just started playing with it and practicing it. And it just changed everything because it allowed me to go into parts work, inner child work.
Mm-hmm.
But for crying out loud, like for me, I suffered every type of abuse you can imagine and neglect. And so being able to now be the mom to the version of me that needed her so bad. And to be able to sit and see her pain and listen to what she's trying to say and be able to discern, this isn't me now. This is me holding space for that version of me. And so there are times when it isn't a minute, it is a little bit longer, but that's the process. And I needed something that I could use kind of like on the go, right? I didn't have time to sit for 2 hours and sit with my inner children. I needed a process that I could take with me if I'm in the grocery store, if I'm on a vacation, something comes up. I don't have to go, I got to excuse myself for 2 hours, or 30 minutes. I can just work through it literally in my head, and be with myself in that moment. I've done it in a restaurant surrounded by other people. You'll see, like, people know now because they know me well enough, but if they see me rubbing my leg, they're like, oh, she's doing her thing, And so you find tools that you can use within your daily life because those are the ones that you're going to continue to use because they're not something that you have to create time for. And that's why I loved it so much.
Yeah, it's so simple. And it after, I'm assuming, many years of practice, it can become that. I've seen people with like the bands where you can
Yeah.
like snap it on your wrist, or like the meditation things where you're like, okay, let me just like bring myself into the present moment, whatever it is that can kind of snap you out of that
Yeah.
like negative thought loop or that old emotion or that old memory, because those, like, it's only you that keeps you stuck. You are
Yeah.
the one that can change everything, whether it's just moment to moment and like
Yeah.
the presence that you bring to each day, or it's like the big life changes of like the job that you don't like, that you haven't liked for a while, the relationship that isn't good for you, the relationship that you have with the foods or the diet patterns that aren't serving you anymore. Like, these are all things that no one can, I mean, there's people to support you, but ultimately at the end of the day, it's you. And having these processes to emotionally regulate through them is so key, because I think there's this generation of adults living around that have never been given these tools of,
No. And that's why I wish it would
acknowledging.
be in schools. Like if we had a class that was mandatory in school, especially when you're because the age 8 to 15 is where your EQ is developed, your emotional intelligence is developed. So if there could be a mandatory class from those ages that taught children how to recognize their emotions and how to regulate their emotions, can you imagine what a different world we would have? And it's not, if you're a parent that doesn't know how to do this, one, learn it. But two, my parents, they didn't, and that generation, they swept everything under the rug. When I was emotional, I was sent to my room. I was sent to isolate. And so and it's not to blame them. They didn't know what they didn't know. And so it's our responsibility to know. And when we choose to stay stuck, we choose not to look at those thoughts when they come up, because that's the powerful moment. When those thoughts arise, that is the moment of alchemy. That's the moment that you can change it. That's when it's most powerful to change it. So if you can do that, that's you serving you. But if you choose to distract or to medicate or to oppress it or to not change it, you're choosing that too. And that's self-abandonment. People don't like when I say that, but that's what it is. I have an abandonment wound. I abandoned myself because I was trained to. And I had to wake up and face myself and go, oh, people pleasing is self-abandonment. Becoming what someone else wants is self-abandonment. Staying in a career that you hate, that drains your soul, is self-abandonment. So you may not know what you want next, but you have to start taking those steps to say, what is it that I want? What is it that my soul's calling me to do? And start taking those steps to support you, to choose you. Doesn't mean you can't still consider other people, but if you're not the first person in the people to consider, you're abandoning yourself.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't know that they're doing that. Like
Yeah, it's
the
unconscious.
tiredness, the stress, the everything. You're like, well, this is just life, right? Like you're
Yeah.
just meant to be stressed out and anxious. I think a lot of that is taught in schools about
Yeah.
like getting the right grades and keeping up with in the popularity contest, and like going from like class to class to class to like appointment to appointment to extracurriculars. Like all of these things are subconsciously taught.
Achievement. I got to achieve.
Yeah, and all these things. And then we get to be grown-ups and you're like, oh, this kind of stress and pressure and achievement pressure is normal.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, you're meant to be exhausted by the end of the day because you've been stressed all day versus just like, wow, I just had an amazing day because I did the things that I wanted and I've treated myself the way that I have, desired to. I've met my needs and now I'm going to go for like a beautiful sleep and
Yeah.
slumber versus like just wired awake trying to sleep and you're
Right.
like,
Because your mind
yeah,
doesn't shut off, your mind
yeah.
goes in, your brain goes into like a cycle of like sweeping and clearing out when you lay down at night.
Mm,
So if you've been distracted all day, when you lay down and you haven't been aware of your thoughts, your mind's going to race because now it's like all these things that you were distracting from, we have to clean out and process. And so just pay attention. If that's what's happening, you need to just slow down a little bit more during the day and become aware of more of what's going on and be able to handle as much as you can. And it's not, you're never going to be perfect at it, but you have to start practicing it.
hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a muscle.
Yeah.
So we started the podcast and I said, like, where are you at today? You're like, I'm free.
Yeah.
So what does freedom mean to you?
It just means following my calling, my soul's desires. And so it doesn't mean I don't work hard. I do. Sometimes I work long hours, sometimes I don't. But I've written, I just finished my third solo book. And so I do a lot of writing. I have a thriving coaching business helping women to do exactly what I've done for myself. I have my own podcast with a goal of being, you know, uh, having an in studio show on iHeartRadio. I'm trying to get a book deal. But when I'm not doing those things, I'm being creative. I'm doing other projects that feel good to me. I'm reading, I'm working out. I love to work out. I'm on the lake paddleboarding. I'm in Texas, so it's summer like 10 months out of the year. I spend a lot of time outdoors. I spend time with friends. And then there's times where I'm 3 days. I'm, you know, in my house, just relaxing and taking it easy and moving slow. But my day is scheduled. Like my calendar doesn't open until 11 a.m. They can't book me past 5 p.m. And I only do that 3 days a week. Mondays are a day for me to do creative stuff and CEO work. And Fridays can be a catch up day, and I can schedule people there if I need to. But I get the freedom to do what I want and I can travel and I can take my business with me and work from anywhere in the world. And like, that's freedom. That's to do what you love from anywhere in the world and to create your own schedule and your own routine. I'm very dedicated and have structure. I meal prep and I have these things that I do, but I flow within that. And what do I need? What does my body need now? What kind of food does it desire? All of those things and the freedom to make those choices, and also freedom is when someone's judging you, when something's not going your way, when someone is disrespectful, it's choosing to not take that personal, to put it into your person. It's choosing to say no. Like I discern that's your projection and I'm free to be sovereign and believe what I need to believe. I don't need to argue with you. I don't need to debate with you. I don't need to prove myself to you. I can just be like, okay, you think the sky's purple? Cool. All right. See you later. I'm going to go on with my life, And so it's like the law of detachment, really. You're detached from letting anything outside of what you know to be true about you to affect you.
Yeah, I think we get so bogged down and like that's another piece of being stuck in other people's opinions of you or like wanting to change something that's like, outside of you. It's like I think we're in a time where we're starting to understand a little bit more about what it means to speak freely and understand that everyone's going to have these beautiful schools of thought and understanding, and it's absolutely not your job and will actually keep you sicker, stucker, and more stressed out
Yep.
to try to change anyone else's mind. Like
Yes.
your own thoughts can just be their own, and if they are strong enough and they have enough faith behind them, then they're going to be fine just as pillars by themselves. You
Yeah.
do not need to have anyone else holding these pillars of belief up with you.
No.
And those things, if you're trying to reach out and be like, no, but believe
It's
me, or
exhausting.
or think well of me, like that is going to keep you stuck
Yes.
for sure.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
always say you only defend what you doubt.
Oh,
So if you find yourself defending yourself, that means you're not solid in your belief as it is. So that's okay that, you catch yourself and be like, oh, okay, I'm not real solid in this belief then. If I feel like I need to prove my belief, if they don't agree, then it's not true. So I
right.
use that as a way to go anytime I felt myself defending myself. Now, I'm not saying not allowing someone to disrespect you. That's different. You're going to know the difference. But it was a matter of like, oh, okay, I need to strengthen this belief inside of me. Or maybe I look at it and say, do I really believe this? Right. And so anytime you do that, you only defend what you doubt. And the other thing that I used was anytime I felt resentment, I knew I crossed my own boundary. I did something I didn't want to do because that's anger
Oh,
turned inward. You're angry at
right.
yourself. And so I use those markers to help further align me with my authentic self by saying, okay, cool. Now, when I get triggered or something happens like that, it's not that it's still not, doesn't feel great. It doesn't, never, it's never really going to. But I kind of get excited because I'm like, okay, this is something that's been tripping me up. It's a tripwire, or this is something that's blocking light for me. And so every time I find myself defending myself or feeling resentful, I'm like, okay, cool. Okay, this is what I need to not do next time. Let me realign again. Let me realign again. But I think sometimes we get caught up in the shame and blame, like shame on me, blaming yourself. Like that's not going to serve you either. That's only going to further cement that energy of shame and density. So it's going back to I love you anyway. But those two key things I wanted to say because I feel like that those can stick with people as markers to help them come back into alignment.
Yeah. I love the term of like boundaries have nothing to do with anybody else.
No, they don't. And you have to enforce them.
Yeah.
And that's the scary part, and enforcement means sometimes you have to lose somebody. But
Yeah, but it teaches you so much about what that person was there for in
yeah,
the beginning. And
yeah,
then all of a sudden you're like, "Oh, wow, I feel lighter." Like that's a freedom to know that it may not feel like that in the moment. Like a
no,
lot of these big choices and changes that you're thinking about making or doing, like they don't feel good.
they're
No one's
uncomfortable.
saying this is like, "Yeah, you're going to feel amazing and happy and joyful and blissed out." It's like you're going to go through the darkness and the uncomfortable feelings and the decisions of holding that boundary and be like, "Okay, I held that boundary and that person didn't like that. Okay. Well, I did it before. I could do it again." And like you're giving yourself these opportunities to understand that you do have that strength inside of you and
Yeah,
you can hold them and they have nothing to do with anybody else who is trying to stick you into being that person who is boundaryless.
right. And remember, comfort is a cage. Talk about being
Mm,
bound. If you
yeah.
want to stay in comfort, you're in a cage. Allow yourself to be comfortable in the discomfort. It will change your life.
Wow. So, if you could give your younger self, when your younger self was people pleasing, chameleon energy, like all of those things, if you could give her a little piece of, I mean, you've shared the purification
Yeah.
process, but if there is something that you could just like, just that little nudge or tap on the shoulder to be like, hey, look at this, what would it be?
Choose you.
Mm,
I mean, that's what my third book is about. It was the
yeah.
path to finding and choosing me, but choose you because I didn't. I chose to stay in an abusive home to take care of my siblings. I chose this. I chose that to keep the peace, to do that. And that wasn't serving me. And I knew it in a sense, I knew and I didn't know. There's always a knowing really deep inside of you that knows. We tend to ignore that. That's our intuition. If I could go back, I wouldn't change anything, but I would tell her, choose you. It's okay to choose you. And that's hard for people to do. And again, doesn't mean you don't consider other people, but you got to be the first one you consider. And I didn't consider myself at all because I wasn't considered. And so that's what I would tell her. I would tell her to choose you.
Oh, that's beautiful. And yeah, I love that you said that it doesn't mean you're not considerate. Like there
Uh-uh.
are all sorts of ways that you can be considerate of others and their beliefs and their faiths and their wants and needs and like try to work with that. But
Yeah.
how are you supposed to do that when you are so depleted, stuck, bound up in this like constantly serving and pouring out and pouring out and pouring out, unless you know what you want, and then you can help others, which is I think a huge message specifically for the women listening to this podcast, which I feel like it's a majority of women, but yes. And I feel like let's share this podcast with those women who, you know, are outsourcing themselves. They're out spending their energy. They're like out doing everything that they were supposed to do. And maybe like,
you're
slow
worthy
down.
of that.
Yeah.
You are worthy of pouring into your own cup. You're worthy of other people pouring into your own cup.
Yeah.
But if you don't start that process yourself, ain't nobody else going to do it for you.
Mm-hmm. Oh, beautiful. Well, Johanna, this has been a juicy conversation. If anybody wants to get to know you more and hear about your offers, where can they find you? Because I feel like you are just a wealth of knowledge and support in this process.
So you can go to johannaburkhart.com, and I am on, you can search Johanna Burkhart on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. I'm everywhere. And there I share on all platforms. I share so much from my heart, you know, and I have a few books on Amazon as well that you can search. The Holy Grail, The Journey Through My Soul's Evolution, goes really deep into the purification process for anybody that really wants to dive into that. But yeah, I come follow me. I share all the wisdom all the time.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing and being here today. This has been amazing. I think it's exactly what so many of our listeners have needed. And so, friends, if you felt like this episode just lit a fire underneath you, or you know someone who needs to hear this message, go ahead and just share it with them. Give them a little backstory. Be like, hey, I thought about you. And then you can also go ahead and like the episode, follow along on whatever platform you are listening to. And keep on choosing you and living that life unbound. We will see you on the next episode. Thanks, friends.